Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, I'm Tori, and today we are going to be getting into the mid-year freakout tag. This has been a staple in the book community for years now. I've been doing this for the past few years on my channel, and it's just always a good time. It's just a point for us to come together mid-year, check in with how things have been going, what's the best book of the year so far, what's the worst, disappointments, all of this. I think by this point a lot of you know how this goes. I've got 13 questions here, I've got the books on my other side, and we just have a lot to chat about. I think while it has been a solid reading year for me, I am really hopeful that the second half of the year at least will really step up, and I'll be reading just some incredible books a little bit closer together, because right now I feel like they've been few and far between. I read just something incredible in January, and then after that it wasn't until actually a few weeks ago where I was reading other books that I just thought were phenomenal. So I do want to bridge the gap a little bit between how far I'm going in between reads that I find to be amazing. So hopefully the quality of reading will pick up in the second half of 2024. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know down in the comments what some of your responses would be to some of these questions, and let's get into it. To mention in the intro that I am gonna try to just do one book per question and not try to double up, but there is a point where I am gonna have the same book and the same author for different questions, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Question one always gets us started off on a really difficult note, and the question is, what is the best book you've read so far in 2024? The best book I've read so far in the year, and of course the dust jacket is coming off, the best book I've read so far this year is The Will of the Many by James Islington, and this is the first book in the Hierarchy series. I cannot say enough great things about this book. Overall, this has been the best reading experience I've had in 2024 on every level. Just incredible. The characters, the structure of the world, how it all unfolds, and just the mysteries and how they're unraveled. I just think this is so excellent. I really love the pacing of this. Hands down, this is the standout for me of 2024. Completely blew me away on so many different levels. I cannot wait to read book 2, Strength of the Few. There's so many questions we came out of this first book with that desperately need answers, and I just can't wait. 2025 is already, I think, shaping up to be a really great year for releases. I did a standalone review for The Will of the Many because I just needed to completely gush about it. The actual setup for this world is nothing that we haven't seen before. You have this republic. They've conquered all these different places, brought people under their rule. And our main character, Vis, comes from a place that was one of the last to be conquered by the Canon Republic. And as the story goes on, Vis is put into the elite academy in this republic in order to unravel secrets on someone else's behalf. And it just spirals out of control in the absolute best way possible. I really love the world building of this. The structure of the hierarchy I also thought was really fascinating. And just kind of working your way through that structure, learning about it as the book goes on, is just one of the highlights for it. Learning how will actually works. Just such an all-around incredible reading experience. I cannot recommend this book enough, and I will be reading book 2 immediately when it comes out because this was just perfect. Question 2 is, what's the best sequel that you've read so far in 2024? And for this one, I'm gonna just cheat a little bit and go with a book that I'm currently reading at the moment, and that is Howling Dark by Christopher Rocchio, and this is the second book out in the Sun Eater series. This is so good so far. I'm actually buddy reading this. I'm pretty sure they're done at this point. I'm so far behind, it's not even funny. I'm on chapter 28, page 234. I am loving everything about this so far. Where we are with Hadrian's character in this book, and even just some of the small decisions that he's having to make in this second book, you see how they're really shaping the path to the person that is telling us the story from this future place. And what I'm really loving about this book, I'm noticing that future Hadrian is actually interjecting a lot more in this than he was in Empire of Silence. He was definitely, very present in Empire of Silence, but now future Hadrian is just really popping in and like telling us about different characters and moments where decisions that he is making will like split his path from other characters' paths forever and all this kind of stuff. I was already such a huge fan of the world building in the first book and the scope of it, how epic it was. It's getting even bigger like in this book, which is just wild to me. The world building is getting bigger. This one in particular so far has definitely felt like more of a space opera. and it is just good. I've also been really fascinated with the timeline of this story so far. The book actually begins with a pretty massive time jump from where we left off in Empire of Silence and what the group set off to go do. So we kind of pick up with that, but when we pick it up, you are just dropped right into the center of everything. We have new characters immediately. Hadrian is thinking about things that we haven't experienced with him yet. It's so good. I have tapped so much in this book. I love the cast of characters and their relationships in this, and even how some of the relationships have been strained and divided in this. But one of my favorite moments, and you can see Hadrian's character really building, you know, he's talking to a character who's asking like, okay, well, what do you want for this basically? And Hadrian says, were I still the boy I had been, I would have said she owed me for my mercy. But mercy that expects payment is no mercy at all, nor is a friendship truly a friendship that stands on debt and gratitude. And it's just little moments like that that are really shaping like Hadrian's moral and noble character. But at the same time in this book, he is starting to have to make decisions that are slowly going against, you know, the moral character and the moral Hadrian that we've gotten to know. I love this. I really do. I really think when all is said and done, this is going to be another of my all-time favorite series. Just amazing. The next question is, what's a new release you haven't read yet but want to? And for this question, it can't be anything other than Empire of the Damned. I bought this book when it came out earlier this year, and it's just been sitting on the shelf. So this is something I'm definitely going to be getting to in the second half of 2024. I really loved Empire of the Vampire, so I cannot believe this is a new release that just has slipped by me. So definitely need to get back into this and wrap it up pretty soon. Question 4 is, what's your most anticipated release for the second half of 2024? I sound like a broken record. I'm sure a lot of you already know what I'm gonna say, but that is On Vicious Worlds by Bethany Jacobs, and this is the second book in the Kingdom trilogy. I think now I have mentioned These Burning Stars in like my last 2 or 3 videos. I love it so much. You can go see me ramble in those other videos about it, but These Burning Stars was just such an incredible sci-fi book, and I can't wait to see where we're gonna go. And I know where we're gonna go, but I can't wait to see how that's handled in On Vicious Worlds. And the last time I talked about it, we didn't have a cover. We still don't, but the cover has slightly been updated, so I feel like we're getting closer to a cover reveal. I cannot wait for that day to come. I just think this is gonna be such a great sequel, you guys. Seriously cannot wait. Question 5 is, what's the biggest disappointment of the year so far? I actually have 2 answers for this one for 2 different reasons. The first one is Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes, and the other one is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Ghost Station's a disappointment just because I didn't think it was very good. The Familiar was a disappointment because I thought I would love it, and it was just fine. I've mentioned this several times, but I really love Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, and so I was just so excited for the release of Ghost Station. It was atmospheric, definitely, but it didn't have like those intense kind of moments that I was really anticipating and that I enjoyed in Dead Silence. So a bit of a letdown. I thought the main character in Ghost Station was just incredibly passive, and it didn't make for the most engaging reading experience over the course of the book. So wasn't a big fan of Ghost Station, but I do recommend Dead Silence if you're still interested in S.A. Barnes. But then on the other hand, The Familiar was disappointing because I finished it and I was just like, okay, like what? I don't know what to do with this now. The Familiar was fine. I didn't dislike it. I didn't love it, but I really thought I would just have a much stronger reaction to reading the book than I did. And it was disappointing because that was one of my most anticipated releases for 2024. So I'm definitely a little bit bummed that I did not love The Familiar. Question 6 is, what is the biggest surprise of the year so far? And for this one, I have to go with When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. I have said this before, but I'm really enjoying Veronica Roth's adult sci-fi fantasy. I think she has come such a long way, and this is an adult dark urban fantasy story. It's set in Chicago. Kind of the setup for the world is that you have all these different creatures, and you have this order that they have these weapons, these swords, and they go out and they can slay these different creatures. And this is a novella, and at the beginning of the novella, our main character, he wants an audience with this powerful witch, and the entire novella you don't know why. You don't know what he's gonna say, what he's gonna do, and along the way he meets characters to help him on that journey of finding this witch and getting this audience with her, and it's so good. It really is. Veronica Roth did a really great job balancing the dark elements of this story with characters that had a lot of heart, and just, it was good. I enjoyed this, I recommend it, and I will definitely be reading more from Veronica Roth in the future. Question 7 is your favorite new author, debut or new to you in 2024. This is where I have a similar answer to the previous question and have to double up, but favorite author this year so far has been Christopher Rocchio. I'm just blown away. I really am. I'm having such an incredible time with the Sun Eater series. So I've read the first book, but I've also read the novella The Lesser Devil, and that was also good. That was good. And now Howling Dark is amazing. So I am just having such a good time with Christopher Rocchio and the Sun Eater series and Hadrian. And you can just tell when you're reading it that there has been so much careful planning and structure and outlining involved in this series, because there have been some things that Hadrian mentioned in Empire of Silence that I still haven't encountered yet, but there's also some things that I have encountered yet, and they're like exactly what he said in Empire of Silence. I'm just like, yes, this is great. This is how you do it. I cannot wait to continue with this series, but hands down, Christopher Rocchio is new favorite author of 2024 so far, and I just can see that getting stronger as we continue through the year and I keep reading more of this series. And then question 8 is just, who is your newest fictional crush? I usually always skip this question because I have no idea. And then question 9 is, who is your newest favorite character of 2024 so far? And for this one, I have to go with Flea from The Silver Blood Promise. She is such a good character and such a good balance for this story. She's not only just, you know, a thief and street smart and all of this. Her dialogue is a little off the wall sometimes, like in the most unhinged way that just kind of catches you off guard sometimes. Some of the things she says just truly come out of nowhere and you're like, what is going on? So Flea was the standout for me of The Silver Blood Promise. Just the way that she interacts with our main character and other characters around her, it's so good. She definitely brings this like lightheartedness to the story, but also a vulnerability, which I really appreciated. And just, I really loved reading about that in her. Question 10 is a book that made you cry. For this one, we gotta go with The Trials of Empire by Richard Swan. And this is the third and final book in the Empire of the Wolf trilogy. I kept saying that if this book stuck the landing when it released, this will be a new all-time favorite series. And I'm really happy to say that that is now the case. This is new all-time favorite trilogy. I just thought everything about this trilogy was incredible. The ending of this book, it's not that it's just like so sad. I mean, it's dark. It's really dark. And there are just moments at the end of this book that just reach this huge crescendo that just kind of have you holding your breath. This book will have you reading it thinking like, how did we get here? How did we start with the Justice of Kings and end up in a Stephen King novel? Like, there's so many horror elements in this book. Things just get weird after a certain point, but Richard Swan manages to pull it all together into an ending that I just thought was really satisfying and really befitting of this cast of characters. I love this. The ending, it wasn't like boo-hoo sad, but it was like, oh, I can't believe this is ending kind of sad. And it just felt really bittersweet. I think it always does when you're finishing something that you really love and a series is coming to its end. So yeah, love Trials of Empire, love the Empire of the Wolf trilogy, but this definitely got many tears out of me when I turned that final page. Question 11 is a book that made you happy. We gotta go with The Jade Setter of Jan Loon by Fonda Lee for this one. I love this. I'm smiling just talking about it now. This felt like coming home. I've mentioned that Empire of the Wolf is one of my favorite fantasy series. The Greenbone Saga is my favorite fantasy series, like #1 all time. I love the Greenbone Saga. Getting to come back to the world of the Greenbones and Jan Loon and everything in The Jade Setter of Jan Loon was just such a nice treat. That's the only way I know how to put it. This takes place a little bit before the events of the first book, Jade City. And even though we're not following, you know, our family or anything like that, it's so good. If you're a fan of the Greenbone Saga, I need you to read this. Like, highly, highly recommend you read this. Do not read it like in the middle of the Greenbone Saga. Finish the saga and then come back and read this, but it is so good. We have a character who's an apprentice to a jade setter. I'm not gonna spoil it, but someone who works for a character that we do know in the Greenbone Saga comes into this jade shop and needs something fixed. And that same night, that item that needs fixing goes missing, and it just becomes a scramble of like trying to find it, trying to find out who did this. And it was, not gonna lie, it was a little stressful. I would have just left. Quite honestly, you can have the item, I'm gonna disappear. But I think if you want to come back to Jan Loon in a different way, definitely pick up The Jade Setter of Jan Loon. And then question 12 is, what's the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far in 2024? For this one, gotta go with When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. A lot of my TikTok mutuals have read this book and there's been some mixed opinions on it. Everyone can agree that the writing is good, but there have been some really interesting, you know, reviews. But overall, it did make me really curious, and I am in a place where I feel like I want to give fantasy romance another try. So I have this one, and I have Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco as well that I want to get into. So yeah, I picked this up. Who knows what I'll think of it, but this cover is absolutely stunning. I don't think you can really tell from here, but the designs on it, especially like up at the top, it's so bright. It looks like everything is glowing almost. So I love this cover. It's beautiful. I don't know why this book is so massive, but we'll see. I do want to get into that. And then the last question, this is always the hard one. It's what books do you need to read before the end of the year? The answer, as usual, is all of them. I need to read all the books before the end of 2024. But just in terms of priority, the biggest, no questions asked, is definitely Stormlight Archive. That is what I want to get started with come, I think, August. That's what I'm pushing for, to get into the Way of Kings and just finally start my Stormlight journey. So that is the big priority for the second half of 2024. But other than that, I actually would like to continue on with the Witcher series. I left off on Baptism of Fire. That's hanging out in the queue as well. I also would like to continue on with the Chorus of Dragons series by Jen Lyons, because I love the Rune of Kings. So I can hear the comments now. I do want to start 2 new series before the end of 2024, not including Stormlight Archive. I have no business starting any new series. So the first series I would like to start is the Magic of the Lost series by C.O. Clarke, and book 1 is The Unbroken. And then the second series I want to start, I actually have the first 2 books on my shelf because I found the second one extremely cheap and couldn't pass it up. But I have The Chronicles of the Bitch Queen by K.S. Veloso on my list, and book 1 is The Wolf of Oroñaro. The first book has been on my shelf for a really long time. So those 2 in particular, those are the priority series that, you know, I would start over any other new series that I have on my shelf. So definitely those 2. And then just, you know, I'm just taking it one day at a time, honestly. There's just so much to read. And as usual, it's always so little time. I feel like I've been having a really, really big fantasy year, and I just think that's going to continue as we get into the second half of the year. I am happy though that Sun Eater is balancing that out a little bit, but I actually would like to start incorporating a little bit more sci-fi into the months as we go along. But I have no complaints. The reading year is still going smoothly, and I just think it's going to get even better as we get into the second half of 2024. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Again, let me know down in the comments your answers to some of these questions, your best and worst of the year so far, surprises, disappointments. I want to hear about all of that, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.